So today's episode, we are going to work on getting this gas tank or fuel tank, I'm sorry, the end cut off so we can kind of look in there and see what it's going to take for us to weld the baffle back in and then fix the hole that was put in it. So stay tuned, get comfortable, get you something to drink. We've got a lot to cover. Okay, so I'm going to be cutting this aluminum with a cutoff wheel. I'm going to score around the weld all the way around. The material is not very thick, but there is typically, you've got your drum or your round part of your tank, and then the end caps have long lips on them that is pressed in. So what I'm going to attempt to do is just cut the weld all the way around and see if I can't get that end cap out. I've never done this before, so I may be doing it all wrong. I may actually ruin this tank and have to buy a new one anyway, but if I can salvage it, I'm gonna try. Now, one thing I did do, it's actually a perfect day today, even though it's January 1st, I think. I put my long sleeve shirt on or coat just to keep particles from going into my skin, and I got a face mask. So I'm gonna work on that and see how far I can get before I either ruin it or get the cap off. So we'll see how that goes. Okay, I was right. So the lip goes down about 3/4 of an inch inside the tube, if you will. So I'm gonna get something, see if I can't start walking it around. What I did do is cut the little slit here along. It looks like someone had patched this before, so that kind of told me like how thick it is, and it does look like it's kind of separating there, so I may not have actually gotten deep enough, but that's going to let me know. So I'm going to get a chisel and a hammer and see if I can't start walking that up. I have to admit, that was a lot easier than I thought it was going to be. To be honest with you, I thought I was going to be here for like hours doing that, but that was that was pretty easy. All right, so looking, this is the hole. There is a rub mark here and here. So what I think that is see that baffle that's right there? I know it's hard to focus. Let me get it focused. Okay, that baffle right there, get my finger out of the way, was welded here. I think it was just sitting there resting and rubbing, and that's why that's so thin. So the patch that I'll have to do is going to be, not super large, but more than just that right there. So not a problem. I will clean this out where I hammered on the edges a little bit. You can kind of see maybe that, but surprisingly, I am very pleased because this really is not that bad. And to be honest with you, looking at it, if I had to, I could build a new one of these. This is not hard or difficult whatsoever. Matter of fact, I may draw one of these up in CAD just in case I ever decide that I want to do it with new aluminum, because that's easy. And see, this is all spool wire welded. I would TIG weld all of this, and see, we can machine these pieces. We can machine literally every piece of this. So as you tell, I have gloves on. I got some aluminum acid. I'm gonna spray it in there just a little bit, kind of see what it does. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get the pressure washer and that foam cannon. And see if I can't clean this out even more. And we'll spray the whole thing down. All right, so now that I've gotten a chance to look at the inside, I think what I'm gonna do is, instead of cutting that patch out, I think what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put a patch on the inside. Well, first I'm gonna hammer and dolly the hole first to make it smooth again. Then I'm gonna cut a patch, form it to the inside, fully weld it in, and then I'll weld the hole from the outside. So if for some reason, well, it probably will, but when the edges start to melt back, I'll be able to fully weld that once I get to like a thick enough material, and then build it up to where it's the same size, and then I can sand that down or file that down to be the same shape, so that it is so you can't really tell, basically, because I didn't want to have to sand the patch on the outside, and I didn't want like a square or oval or round patch with a weld all the way around it. I'm probably overthinking that and doing it the long way, because probably no one will ever notice, but I'll notice. So so the next step is, let me get this dried, let me get it set up and on the table so I can get to it with my welder, and go from there. And so I'll see you in a minute. Okay, so like I said before, we have our rough contour, but it's rough, very close to what it needs to be. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna roll this through here just to help me smooth out the hammer marks, and make it a nice fuller radius. And I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this because I don't have to have a lot of pressure right now. This will help make it not so rough looking on the inside, but the fact of the matter is no one will ever see it, but I'll know it's there. And so that'll get us here. So all right, back to the tank. All right, so we're back to the tank, and this fits really well. Now, the only downside is I've got a little crest right in the middle where I don't need it to be. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use the hammer and the table to help flatten that out a little bit. Now that's going to sit a lot more flush. All right, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tack this in place and get this, once I get the corners and get this kind of heated up, I'll be able to further hammer and dolly this to get this so I have like no gap whatsoever. I have very light gap in a couple spots, but that's okay. So I am going to get that set up so that I can get that done. It's quite possible today I may get the end cap welded back on. All right, I'll wipe this down with acetone and that down with acetone. All right, so I've got everything set up, got everything wiped down. I am going to start welding this in, doing a little hammer and dolly work at the same time. So this looks like a big scar, which it is, but I'm probably 1/8 of an inch taller than what I actually need to be. But again, like I said, when I go to file this down, I don't want to have to get my welder out again to weld a divot. So I'm gonna go grab my file and see how well I did. And like I said, there may be, because there is an air gap, there may be an indentation that makes it look like a dent, and technically I'll be fine with that, but I'll end up sanding and smoothing that out so so you don't really see that it's welded, but you will see that it may have a dent in it. And technically I could do that over this whole area and build that in. I feel a little crevice going in right there, but it doesn't matter. Again, I wanted the tank to be functional, and I didn't want it to look like it had a weld on it. So, and a dent I'll be fine with. So, because it is an old truck. So, we will get that done, and then I'll weld the baffle back in. So I've got two styles here. This is an old school version where you can adjust it, tighten it up, make it more rigid, and actually bow it. So, and then I have the old school wooden style. You just can't do anything, you just attach it. So I'm gonna try this one first. Oh, and if you didn't know, these are called Vixen files. And they're good for metal and aluminum. I love them for just aluminum. But the goal is you don't wanna put a whole lot of pressure on them because they are so aggressive that you won't go anywhere. What I like to do is lightly go over it, and I'll drag the file back over it because it helps clean the file out. Now these have big ridges. I don't know if you can see this. Huge ridges. That's very aggressive. So if I do so this file is good about shedding a little bit, or a lot of the material, but I don't know if you can see that, but you'll start to get little chunks in it. So when I drag it backwards to knock some of that out. All right, so originally these were only welded in 3 spots, the sides and the middle. This has a, let's see, wear mark in it right there where it was rubbing. I'm not too worried about that. You know, this is just a baffle. So I'm going to put this back in and I'm going to weld it in the same spots. Just move it down a little bit. Since my patch is kind of where the original weld was. So what I'll do is get it in the same general area. Surprisingly, it's not too far away from each other. I want to say they're, you know, 10 inches apart or something. All I got now is to, I'll clean this edge all the way around up. That way, when I do go to weld, I won't pull that trash in, so. So apparently this is going to be the challenging part. Not so much the fixing of the welding, but getting the top back on. Okay, maybe not. You know, I kind of think what I need to do here is put some weld on it. Close it in, like where it's tight right there, put some weld on it. Get one side closed in, put another weld on it. Shoot. Maybe easier than I thought. Let's give it a shot. Oh no. Oh. And I told myself, don't leave it in there. Did I? All right. that knocking around in there would have driven me crazy. So I got this in earlier, and it seemed to go fairly easy. Maybe I'll get lucky again. Okay. Well, so that wasn't so bad. All right. And I thought about maybe putting a strap on that side and bringing it down or across this way to bring it in. And I may have to, but we'll see. All right, so that's that. So I'm gonna push this with my shoulder or my hand to give me kind of a gap. Whew. That did not work. That is not working. That did not go well. Let me start up here, maybe. Yeah, that was tough there. wonder if I can that's a little too much, but there we go. Let's see if I can at least get it tacked. All right, that's tacked. So now I should be able to tack one of these spots. Whew. Okay. All right, well, that's that was a little weird, but I think it'll work. I got my gaps right where I put the cutoff wheel in there. Now, what I'm gonna have to do is, since I didn't take the old weld off, I'm gonna end up having to sand that out everywhere that I didn't tack. Weld those parts up, and then I'll come back and I'll take the where I welded, I'll take that, grind that out, you know, sand it out, and then weld those. So the reason I did that was because if I had sanded that all the way off first, I'd have a really hard time getting it gapped right. So using that weld, you know, and again, I may be a 1/16 of an inch off all the way around. It doesn't really matter, but I really didn't want to have a situation where I accidentally pushed one side in way too far and then I couldn't get the other side in. So that gives me a great guide and actually a great gap to fill. So that's how I will proceed. But the cool part about it is this tank will soon be able to be used, and I will be able to put this tank back on the truck with the air tank that is on that side, and then I can take the driver's side off and the batteries, because I've got to replace the battery trays, but I'll get to rebuild that, but I'll get to take all of that off on the driver's side so I can fix the frame, not fix it, but sand the frame, paint the frame. So on the passenger side, what I have left to do is take the exhaust and intake off, and that frame that's holding that air filter in there, I've got to take that part off, paint that, sand the frame, put that back on. And once I get done with that, from the front drive wheel to the steer wheel on the frame will be done on that side. So that's good progress. So like I said, one bite at a time. So I'm actually done for the day. I can't do anything else. So when I come back, you'll see me fully welding it up, and I think I'm going to go ahead and polish it before I put it in. This may be a good idea, and this may be a bad idea, so I don't know yet. The downside is kind of like I experienced here, where I'm rotating it on this area where I sanded it already. I've already put scratches in it. The plus side though is there's just a small area that that I have to resand, and I'll polish it after, you know, everything is welded. So but yeah, thanks for hanging there. I'll be back to finish this tomorrow, and we'll go from there. I got most of this done yesterday, so what I'm gonna do today is I'm gonna go ahead and sand these edges down, go ahead and prep the edge for just clean it up and get it ready to weld. So I'm gonna do that now, and hopefully by the end of my time today, I'll have this ready to go back on the truck, but I'm not putting it on the truck yet because I'm still have a little bit more left on the passenger side. But what I can do is, when I have more time, I can go ahead and sand this all the way down to get it ready to polish, because I am going to polish these tanks so that so they look real good sitting under the truck. So I'll get that started and we'll go from there. I try to put a loop at the end always for two reasons. When I'm feeding, if somebody walks up behind me and they don't see this, they don't get poked in the face or the eye. But also, I have been welding before, and somehow I got to the end of the rod, and it actually, somehow what I was welding, I came up here and actually came through my hood and poked myself in the chin and scratched my, not chin, my cheek. So I just do this as kind of a safety measure. So. You may or may not could see this, but some of the little spots were wider, like where I paused, so my puddle ended up getting wider than I wanted to. But the other thing too that a lot of creators show, they only show welding on like perfectly clean steel, and so everybody has that frame of mind that that's what everything should look like. And on clean steel, it should look like this, or clean aluminum. But this is, you have to keep in mind, this is dirty aluminum. It has been soaked and with diesel fuel for many, many years. So if you're welding a tank like this, just be aware that you're not going to get necessarily those perfect, super shiny welds. Like you could still see some of the, and that's the beauty about the weld in aluminum, is it has a cleaning action where it draws all that dirt and anything that's impurity in there up to the surface. So, but like I said, I'm old. I haven't welded aluminum in 3 or 4 years. So this is actually the first time that I've, doing this project, that I've actually welded aluminum in that amount of time. And that's okay. So, as long as it holds fuel, we'll be good. So, I will say that before I started doing a lot of the machining, I actually was a certified welder. So it's not that I just went out and bought a welder to do this. I used to weld hours upon hours a day, and my business just kind of grew to the point to where I could hire someone to do my welding for me. But this is a non-paying job. This is my junk. So so I'm doing the welding. So, but it's coming along nicely. We are almost halfway. Got about a 1/2 inch weld right here. Not 100% sure what happened on it. I think I got into some fluid or something, I don't know. But it charred up the pool, whatnot, so I'm gonna grind that out real quick. Luckily, that was the only place that happened. If it happens again, I'll know like something's going on. All right, apparently that either there was just a little bit of trash there or I didn't dip my rod, which that's crazy. I welded this entire time without dipping my rod at all. So from the inside to the outside and the patch. So I'm super happy with that. But that's fully welded all the way around. So my next step is going to be just sanding this and getting it ready to polish. So for now, I'm going to look over it one more time, and I am going to fill it completely full of water. Okay, let me clarify that. I'm probably not going to fill it completely full of water. I'm going to fill it up enough to come up to like this joint here, just enough to see if that's leaking, and if I have enough plugs, I'll put like 3 or 4 pounds of air pressure in it as well. So that'll tell me if that's leaking or not. So for future reference, if y'all decide to do this, I'm gonna put enough water in it to come up. I'll look on the other side. If there's like some type of joint or something lower than this, then I'll leave it at that point. If there's not, I'll put that much water in it, and then if I don't have a fitting where I can plug an air hose to, I'll make a fitting. That way I can pressure test this and use soap and water to see if there's anything coming out. So, but for the most part, this part of the project is done. This was a major hurdle for me because I was really dreading doing this, to be honest. I don't know that I mentioned it before, but I'll mention it whether I did or not. The strap was just so I could keep it on the table and it wasn't moving around on me a lot. So that sucks when that happens. So, but once I pressure test this, I mean, this technically is done. So I may have to come in, I may have to, let's just say it's leaking somewhere. So I'll end up drilling a hole or drilling down to the surface. And I won't do just that little area. I will probably spread it out over 1 to 2 to 3 inches, depends on how bad it's leaking, and then completely re-weld that. But I don't think I'll have a problem. That's arrogant speaking and ego. Life has a tendency to humble us when we're in that situation. So there probably will be like 50 leaks. But for the most part, this is done. So again, sand it, polish it, put it back on the truck. So, and then after I do that air filter box frame stuff, the passenger side will be done. So I'll show you all how I do all that. And I don't know what they're called, but the parts that hold the frame part that holds the exhaust and intake, I'm building a new one of those. So that's going to look good because I want to do dual exhaust and intake. So I'm gonna put one of those on both sides. So yeah, thanks for hanging with me. That's the end of this video. So if you just decide to do this, drop it in a comment, let me know what you did, or if you think I should have done something differently. Or if there's something that I didn't know and you're just like, hey, dumbass, why the fuck didn't you do this? So I'm here. So let me know. Thanks again. Y'all have a happy new year.